are going to change roles, and Jens is going to be interviewed by me, and it's about a topic that we're both been very interested for a really long time.
Oh yeah.
So this topic is about what do we do with all the stress that we're under, Jens? I think we're trying to manage pretty well, but this is an unusual time, and a time that is unprecedented, and we kind of don't know what to do with our stress. So today I'm going to ask a few questions of Jens, and he's going to suggest some things for us that might help us get through this time of COVID-19.
It doesn't just stay with just COVID-19.
Right.
We were doing this way before this thing happened. We're going to continue to do this way after this thing is over. So this is actually really helpful in just every day.
Right, because we have stress every day.
Yep.
Right now, this is the biggest thing on our mind, but in a month or two, this is going to be behind us, in the rear view mirror, people say. But then life goes on, and we continue to have stress.
Yep.
So stress does have a huge effect on the body, right? As a chiropractor, I know that stress, we go up into that fight and flight, and our adrenaline starts running, our cortisol starts running, and if we're up in that for a long period of time, stress wreaks havoc on the body. Cells start breaking down, everything starts breaking down. So Jens, tell me about stress, and how do you start maintaining a more peaceful attitude?
Well, excuse me, I have to wet my whistle. First we have to know what stress is. Stress is at least as far as I defined it in the mind, right? It's the story that we tell ourselves.
Absolutely.
Right? I have a story that was told to me by a good friend of mine. His name's Johnny, and he grew up in Pittsburgh. And so he moved out to the West Coast. He moved to LA about 10 years ago, 12 years ago probably now. And he was super excited to experience an earthquake. And right? Seems weird.
Yeah.
But he was like, I'm going to California, I want to experience an earthquake. So for years it never happened. And he was like, people would tell him, oh, there's an earthquake last night. And he's like, I was sleeping, I didn't feel it.
Right.
So he teaches seminars. He does things for the military. He does things for guys and self-improvement, stuff like that. So he was in the middle of a seminar, and one guy that he was teaching had flown out to LA to attend the seminar that week, and this guy was extraordinarily scared of earthquakes.
Oh.
So it was probably about 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the morning, and guy was in the restroom, his coffee had kicked in, and Johnny was on break. He was kind of checking his phone and everything, and then it happened, and you could hear the rumble.
Oh.
And Johnny was like, yeah, an earthquake! This guy came out with his pants around his ankles going, it's an earthquake! It's happening! We're all gonna die! So, I tell that story, I like that story because it's really funny, but two, because it's just an event, right?
Right.
There was two separate stories being told around that one earthquake.
Right.
To Johnny, it was the coolest thing ever. He finally got to experience this earthquake. To the guy in the restroom, it was the worst thing ever. Could you imagine, like, your biggest fear, then you have to go where that thing is. Like, if you're afraid of clowns, and then you have to go to the circus, and then you're in the bathroom, and then a clown comes in, and then, like, starts knocking on the door.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So... But it's the same thing. So who was right in that situation? Both of them were, right? Mm-hmm. It's the story that they told themselves. One had excitement, one had extreme stress. So I say that all of that just to get around that stress it starts in our head, and it's the story that we keep telling ourselves. What I do and what I help people with is how to train your brain to tell the right story, right? And my two most basic tools that I use is journaling and meditation.
So journaling and meditation. Journaling, tell me a little bit about that. Sometimes journaling isn't easy. Sometimes you feel kind of dumb. Can you tell me how you got started and is there like questions you're supposed to ask yourself, or how?
First of all, when I started journaling, I hated it. It sucked, right? It was.
It's hard.
I felt like I was a kid, like, dear diary, this happened today. And like, as a 29, 30-year-old guy with a beard and long hair, like, going, dear diary in my notebook just didn't kind of, didn't hit home.
Right.
And then it also felt like, why would I just bitch in this book?
Yes.
And why would I just... Man, I remember that's what I did when I was a kid, right? I had a journal, and I would sit behind the chair and I would curse at grandma because it was my private diary, and then I get mad at mom because she made me go to bed and I wanted to stay up and watch the movie, and it didn't feel better after that.
No.
And then I felt scared because I thought somebody was gonna find my journal
Yes.
and read it.
That's exactly right.
Well, having part of your journal be a bitch to kind of get things off your chest, because you do hold things, and you know this as a chiropractor, you know how people hold on to stress in their body, right? We have experienced patients here who have had emotional releases on the table or on a massage table because they're holding that, and so it's good to get that
So
out.
when you start touching the body that memory is kind of trapped in, they start crying, they start sobbing, and sometimes they can't stop for 20 minutes. So that emotional release, we get that. Not very often, but it is profound when it happens.
Yeah. And that partly comes because you're holding that in too.
Right.
So
exactly.
if you put it elsewhere, if you physically put it into another book and you can put that book away, then it takes that stress off of your body even.
Right.
But that's not where it stops. The next place is that when you are physically writing with a pen in your hand, and I suggest that everyone, and it's a requirement for my clients not to do a journal on their phone or their computer or their iPad. Right? They have to use a pen and paper and put it down. And the reason for that is because when you are writing those letters, that become words, that become sentences, that become paragraphs, you have to slow your brain down to write that word. By slowing your brain down to write that word, you start becoming in control of your thoughts. So when you're writing, and you can even notice this in your handwriting, right? At the beginning of a journal, usually it happens for me, my handwriting's everywhere. By the end of a journal, it's nice, clean, and concise, because that's one, your emotions coming out in your handwriting, but two, I'm just getting everything out. The next step is I go, okay, well, what do I want to be thinking instead? What do I want to be happening instead? How do I want to feel about this thing? Do I want to be the scared guy in the toilet about the earthquake, or do I want to be Johnny and excited about it because it's just an event, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And it's hard when you leave that up in your brain, or you're typing really fast, because I know I have friends who type 1 million words a minute, right, on their phone or on the computer. But when you have to physically write it, you slow down enough that you can start changing that old pattern that creates the stress, right, to a new pattern where you can actually have the excited or calm or good feelings that you had had before.
Is there a way that you can give us an example of you're writing something and then how would you want to experience it? Just, can you give us an example, a story of, your frustration at first, and then how you can visualize how it could have happened differently, or how it can happen differently in the future?
Say money, for instance. Money is a big stressor for a lot of people, right? There's never enough of it.
Yes, right, yeah.
What I do is I'll write, I find that it's very helpful to put words to what I'm feeling, right? And that's hard sometimes. Sometimes you kind of feel blue and people go, what's wrong? And you go, I don't know.
Right.
So I'll start with that. I'll start to kind of introspectively look at what's going on. And so if it's, say, a money issue, there's worry around that, right? What is that? I have made commitments to banks and people and things that I have to pay, right? I have a car payment, I have a cell phone bill, I have a credit card. And so I what does it say about me as a person that I made a commitment and then I can't honor my commitment? And so what am I going to do? What happens if I don't get paid the money I'm going to get paid? And what if they take my car away? And okay, so they take away my car, they take away my what place where I'm living, they take away my credit cards, and now I have no money. What do I do? And now I'm really stressed and worried, and I've created this whole situation around not having enough money, right? So I want to write that down first about what I'm feeling about it and what I'm worried about, and then I kind of, once it's down, see that I don't like feeling that way.
No,
I don't like
right.
feeling that stressed, and so I don't like feeling that feeling of lack, right? We call that, amongst people in my peer group, we call that being supplicative or supplication, which, if you break that word down, just means feeling below or less than, right?
Okay.
So if you have that feeling of being less than, you feel that disconnect, that ugh. Okay, well, what do I want to feel instead? Well, I want to feel confident, right? I want to feel that, okay, the money's going to be there when it needs to be there. I'm going to be taken care of. So I first put all my negative feelings and what I am feeling in there. Then I go, okay, what do I want to feel instead? And I want to feel that confidence. And then I will start to think about ways that, okay, well, maybe I can help somebody out, or maybe I can start an Etsy shop, or maybe I can pick up another side job. Maybe I could do DoorDash at night. Maybe I could do, and whatever the answer to that question is, will start coming to you, because your brain is a question answering machine, and you've allowed yourself the time to accept the feelings that you were feeling, and now you can move on to the feelings that you want to feel instead.
Right. So
Is that clear?
yeah, it does. It does. When you calm down, when you can get that anger and that fear and everything out, and then you start calming down, that allows your brain to be more creative, right? More open to some ideas and stuff. But when you're up in that fear, you can't think of anything.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds that writing out your journal, if you start doing that, then you are going to calm down. You're going to kind of clear your brain out so that you have more space to do some positive things.
Right. I think maybe we should talk about a little bit of how the brain works around those things, right?
Okay.
Because we have these thought patterns, right? Or people call them positive feedback loops or negative feedback loops.
Right.
What that is, that's kind of jargony speak that your therapist or someone might use. But what that means is that you started with a thought or a belief, right? Sometimes your parents had a belief about something. Your mom might have had a belief about money. Your dad might have had a belief about the way a man should act in a relationship, right? All of these different beliefs that we have around us are just thoughts, right? That we're given credence to, and then thought enough that became a pattern that eventually became a belief. And then we adopted them. Some of them we created ourselves. Many of them we've passed on to our kids and the people around us, right? Mm-hmm. So it starts with a thought that we give credence to, that we think over and over again, that we give belief to now,
right,
which influences our actions, which gets us a result, right? So if I have a thought that I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay my car payment on the 15th.
right.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to pay my car payment on the 15th. I don't know if I'm going to be able.
Oh my gosh!
I'm not going to be able to pay my car payment on the 15th. Oh my God! I'm freaking out. I'm never going to be able to make enough money. My mom was right. I'm never going anywhere in life. Okay, so now I'm stressed. Now I'm holding it in, right? And now I'm never going to make it. I'm never going to make it. I'm never going to make it. This is where substance abuse comes from, right?
Yeah, you need to calm yourself down with some other substance.
So what we're doing in this journaling and this meditation is we're taking that thought process, that belief cycle, and some people call that negative reinforcement loop, and go, let's slow it for a minute, see what it is, examine it, and say, okay, do I really believe that? do I really want to believe something else instead? Wouldn't it be more beneficial for me if I believe that, okay, well, I have it within my own power to do a little something extra to make sure I have my car payment paid by the 15th. Right?
Right. You start pulling apart the problem and
Right.
you make it into a smaller and smaller piece, and you go, I can fix this. I can do something different.
Yeah. Yes. Now, I can already hear people saying, that's going to take forever. That's what I said.
Yeah.
And Rome wasn't built in a day, right? I'm not going to ask anybody to ever sit down at their kitchen table and write for 18 hours or meditate for 12 weeks straight. We're not Jared Leto. We can't do that. But what we can do is take a couple minutes and start doing one little thing at a time. Questions like you asked about in journaling do help, but it doesn't always have to be that way. You know when you sit down in front of your book if you want to write something. Sometimes I've written, I don't know what to write about. This is really kind of dumb. And eventually something comes to me, or I kind of have that feeling in the back of my head like, you know what I'm avoiding is this. And then I'll write about the thing I'm avoiding, because if I'm avoiding it, then that's I should be comfortable with the thoughts and emotions that are inside my head. So I'll write about that. I get a lot of times people, especially when they first start working with me, ask for those. Can I get just a list of questions you can give me to answer?
Yes.
I have questions you can answer. I give my clients about 60 some odd questions that they have to go through and answer for our work together, and a lot of times they do use that as journaling prompts. But I tell you, when people just sit down and kind of dissect their own thoughts and emotions, they get so much better results.
Well, I think as a beginner,
Oh, yeah.
you need somewhere to start. I know for me, I will be really good at journaling for a while, and then I'll get away from it, as with any habit or whatever. You get away from it, and then you start to go back to it, and it's like, oh no, I have to write a word on a paper. It becomes quite intimidating. So a question is always kind of good for me. Or one or two or three questions is good for me. It's kind of like a tickler, kind of starts my brain thinking.
So, what I think is really super simple, and I recommend everybody to do it. It actually helps you sleep really great too if you do it at the end of the night. Is your 3 appreciations. Appreciations, if I can enunciate that properly. 3 things that you're happy about that happened during the day. Even if you felt like your day sucked, find 3 things that you're happy about during that day that occurred. It could be that you just had a nice ride home, that it was a nice day out and you rolled the windows down, that you got to sing to your favorite song, that the song ended right as you pulled into the driveway and it was perfect. It could be the littlest things, it could be the biggest things, right?
Right.
3 things, 5 max, right? And that's it. If you're doing this at the end of the night and you're curious about wanting to have better sleep, do that. Write down your 3 appreciations. Write down how you want to sleep that night, and write how you want to wake up. And I tell you that 3-4 days, even the same night, when you first try that, you wake up and you're like, I did feel refreshed. It's the craziest thing, but it actually works.
So you're telling me you have your journal at your night table, right?
I have about 4 or 5 journals I carry with me everywhere. But I've kind of gotten way into this. I'm not expecting everyone to get on the same kind of level and excitement about it that I am. But I recommend having at least a journal that you keep it in your bedroom, keep it in your backpack, keep it somewhere where it's going to be pretty readily handy for you.
Right. And you don't have to worry about, I always worry about it has to be neat, it has to be pretty. You always think that when you die, somebody's going to find your journal and make the great masterpiece, right? So you want it to make it pretty, but it's not. You can put anything in there. You can draw pictures. You can even paste things that you want or things like that. It can just be whatever you want it to be.
It can be it can be whatever you want it to be. When I start working with someone, the first day, it's a requirement that you have a journal when you work with me.
Yeah.
And it's a requirement that you write in the journal when you work with me. I don't read your entries, but what I say is you have to write something. It can be writing in a journal is stupid, today's date, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to do it every day.
Right.
So as long as you start, then it's just one degree, one tiny little inch of change. And that's means the difference, right? It's like if brushing your teeth every day, if you forgot to brush your teeth today, are you gonna get cavities everywhere and your teeth gonna fall out? No. Right?
Right.
But consistently not brushing your teeth, yeah, probably people ain't gonna want to be around you at the very least.
Right. Or even look at you.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's
Right. So just one thing every day. You can write whatever you want. And I would, you mentioned, and it has happened to me, that somebody got into my journal. Somebody that I didn't want to have to my journal. So you have to either keep it in a safe place, I think, or like you said, keep it in your backpack, or let your family and friends know this is sacrosanct. This is mine, and it's not to be trifled with, because it is your deepest, darkest thoughts and inhibitions and fears, and you don't want anybody else to know.
yes, that is important. This can be a whole other video, but about boundaries and stuff like that, and talking to people about boundaries. The other thing though too is some people do like to keep their journal entries to kind of look back and go, oh wow, look at the progress I've made, or wow, I completely forgot I was in this place. I don't. Sometimes I'll go back and look at something and go, oh wow, that was something that was even on my radar. I'm totally past that. Just because I happened to flip to that page.
Right.
But I don't typically go back. It's not very therapeutic for me to go back and look at my journal entries. So if you want to, you can even tear them up, burn them, throw them away, whatever.
Yeah.
The idea is it's not to have a log. It's not to make the opus of your life, right? It's to get the stuff that's in here that your brain is going slowed down on paper, out of your head, so you can be thinking clearly and be on the path that serves you best, and not the one that's stressy and worry and icky, right?
So you can process today, not reprocess yesterday 1,000 times. Okay, that was pretty good about the journal, but now let's talk about meditation.
Okay.
You did mention meditation, and that's another one for me that is like, I remember being in classes where they would say, all right, clear your mind. And the minute somebody says clear your mind, it's like, I got laundry to do, I've got the chores to do, I've got blah, 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 blah. And it's like the worst thing ever. So how can I, as somebody who has a million things on my mind, how can I ever meditate? And do I have to go into the lotus position and the Om? I can't even fold my legs like that anymore. You tell me a little bit.
Yeah, you're right. It is kind of like when somebody says, don't think about a purple elephant. What's the first thing you think of? Purple elephant, right?
Right.
Journaling and meditation are two things you can't do wrong, right? There are forms of meditation where people say clear your mind. The Hindus and the Buddhists, first that come to mind, that they say they want you to quiet your monkey mind, right? And they want you to clear everything out so that you can observe your thoughts, observe your emotions. And while that is helpful, I have done it. It's kind of a little bit, I don't want to say advanced technique, but it is kind of a little bit more in depth than it really needs to be. You can still get that same stress relief, you can still get rid of the worry, you can still gain control over your mind and your thoughts and emotions without going, clearing my mind, I think I left the iron on.
Exactly, right.
So all meditation does is, while the journaling helps with slowing your mind, because you physically have to slow it down because your hand can never keep up with how fast you can think. The meditation does that by now I'm in control of my thoughts, right? And at first you're not going to be. and I want to make that really clear because everybody's like, I'm doing it wrong, this is stupid, right?
Right.
Even
I'm a
Dad
failure. Yeah.
was like, I don't get it, I think I'm doing it wrong.
Right.
So all it is it's like repetition, right? When you're picking up a weight, at first it might feel heavy. Eventually you're going to get stronger, and then you pick up a bigger weight, and you might get stronger, and then you're going to pick up a bigger weight, and you get stronger, right?
Right.
That's what at least part of meditation will do, is it will start strengthening your mind's resiliency to bow to think the way you want it to think. Okay? So, I'll give you an example. Super easy way is breath observation, right? You can do it with your eyes open, you can do it with your eyes closed, you can do it sitting, standing, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take a minute and you just say, I'm going to just observe me. How does that feel? What is that like? Is it a nice cool feeling on my nostrils? Oh, the oxygen. I don't feel like I'm strained when I'm like holding my breath or anything, right?
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be for any certain amount of time. There's no like specific intake. There's no exhale. It's just simply observing your breath.
Mm-hmm.
Inevitably, you're going to start thinking about something else.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
I just heard a car go by and I'm
Right.
like, wow, I wonder what kind of exhaust that they have on that car to make that kind of noise, right? And we're doing a video about meditation and I'm telling you how to meditate, right?
Right.
So you're going to think about something different. That's okay. That's what we want. Yes, we got a rep in.
One
Now-
time.
Yeah,
One in a row.
right? But now we go, oh, shoot, I'm supposed to be thinking about my breath.
Mm-hmm.
Let's think about my breath.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. How does that feel? I made a funny noise. And wow, it's allergy season. I got another rep in. Okay, focus back on my breath. Now you're training your brain to come back. If you were to start meditation and you just went, blank mind.
Yeah.
But
Right.
you wouldn't need to do meditation,
Right,
right?
right.
You might also be a sociopath, but that's also a different video. But what we're looking for is for your brain to go somewhere else, because now we're getting the reps in, which means that you're putting time in, you're doing the work,
Right.
and now you're gaining control of where your thoughts go.
So, in meditation, what I found that is helpful is I find a nice, comfortable place.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you're at work or whatnot. But even in the car, if you're coming home from work and you've got little kids you're coming home to and whatnot, you just want to take some nice cleansing breaths, and somehow listening to the breath going in and out is very relaxing to me.
Mm-hmm.
When my children were younger, watching them sleep, watching them breathe in and out, that was a nice relaxing thing for me. So I think you can do it anywhere. But the point that I was going to make is today, when I was trying to do meditation, I actually turned on my phone for 2 minutes, turned on the alarm, and then I closed my eyes because I can hear better, I can sense things better when my eyes are closed. So I felt the breeze in my hair, I felt the birds in the sky, they were really tweeting today. My dog was with me, I heard her moving back and forth. So I kind of was meditating, but at the same time was very observant of the things around me. And that was...
So that's another thing. I'm so happy you brought that up, is that meditation also isn't always about having that blank mind. It is about observation, right? Because we're trying to observe our feelings, we're trying to observe our thoughts, and then have the thoughts that we want to have. We don't want to have the worry, so let's think about the thoughts that don't give us worry, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So it is about observation. Another great technique is, I call it the 3 things rule. So I take 3 deep breaths, right? And then I think of 3 things I can feel, 3 things I can hear. And then if I have my eyes open, I look for 3 things I can see, 3 things that I can think of that I can maybe taste, or the coffee, the hazelnut I just had in my mouth. And then I feel this, and so it brings in my observation, also brings in my senses. It's a whole body thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what that does is that brings me, one, super present, because where is our stress? It's in the story that we're telling ourselves in the future, right?
Right.
It's not right here. So if we're thinking about what we can observe right here, that brings us to center, which that's kind of a co-opted term, but it brings us to right where we are right now, right? It breaks us off from that future worry, because what our brain is focused on is, oh, I feel this chair's kind of soft. It's kind of all right, and it's I'm right here, and then it's also, again, training with those repetitions that I'm in control of what I'm thinking. So if I want to list 3 things I see a lamp, I see a coffee cup, and I see Dr. Desmarais. Now I just made my brain do that, right? So I'm in control again. So now when I want to think of something that, what is empowering for me to think of, okay, well now my brain's like, oh yeah, of course. I'm so used to listening to you tell me what to think. Now I'm going to think something that's empowering for you.
Okay. So in times when you were talking about money earlier, in times when people are they're very afraid. People don't have their jobs and things right now, and money is really tight, and it is a reality. So by meditating and by journaling and writing these things down, we are clearing our mind so that we would have more creative ideas. Is that right?
Excellent. Yeah.
And helping us control our thoughts, so that I've heard that the things that you think about are what you attract to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can control our brains to think about the positive, then that's what we're going to attract ourselves. So by practicing this, we're going to get better and better, right? Maybe?
Right. Yeah. So that you brought up the positiveness. I didn't come up with this. This was actually, it's called the One World Initiative. Came up with this, and it goes back even further than that. This goes back with religions and it just thousands of years. But it's that there are 2 states that we live in. There is the connected state. That's kind of when you feel up and happy, or some people say that they're feeling the good vibes, or they're on a high vibration, right? I feel super connected to you right now because we're talking, right? You and I are sharing this space and this super interesting conversation. So that's the connected state. That's the good state, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
There's the other state, right? It's the lower frequency that we commonly think of with depression or stress or worry. Anger is in there too, because what is anger really? It's fear, right? And what's fear really? It's a loss of control, and a loss of control comes from the story we're telling ourselves. So there's 2 states, right? There's the connected state and there's the disconnected state. And all we're trying to do with all of this is stay in the higher frequency connected state. Because if I'm present and I'm aware and I'm totally here in this conversation with you, and there's nothing else more interesting, nothing else more important in this world than this, then how important this relationship is now, how synergistic we can now go, how the thoughts and ideas that we can have, that I might say, I've been thinking about this, what do you think? And you're like, oh yeah, that sounds great, now you have an idea. And now we're helping each other synergistically achieve a higher goal. So say it is money, right? And you go, and I say, well, I've been thinking that we might try this project out. And you say, oh yeah, that sounds like a really interesting idea, let's try this. And then we start going back and forth. And now we have this partnership. And even if we don't do it together, now you've given me the ideas and I've gone a step further, and now I can go off and start that project where I can make money, or you and I can start that project where we're making money and we're making sure that our needs are met, right? And that all comes from being in that connected state. Because if I came into this conversation and I was like, well, meditation's interesting. Right.
Real low energy, right. Not connected. Not connected.
Not connected at all. Then we would have been probably 2 minutes in and you'd be like, this is stupid, I'm not even posting this.
Right, exactly. Yeah, right. The one thing that's coming to my mind as we're talking is, because I had a hard time, and I still have a hard time with that meditation thing, and I always think ahead, what if, what if, what if, what if?
Mm-hmm.
And I get into that fear position. The one, I try to go circle right back to the breathing.
Good.
Because physically the back of my head gets tight, everything.
Mm-hmm.
So going to the breathing helps my body, and it's just important. The other thing is that when we get into fear and worry, our body language goes forward and we kind of cave in.
Mm-hmm.
And you'll notice people, their shoulders are rounded, their chest is coming, their chin is coming down to their chest. And so another thing that you can do physically is bring your shoulders back and then look up. When we get into a depressive state, when we're in that fear and we're in anxiety, we curl up because we're into that fight and flight. This is a sympathetic work. But when we can open up, look up at the tops of the trees when you're walking, it physically will help you take away that stress from your body, so that you can, one, breathe better, and then get your brain more under control and to more calm.
Yeah. There is a cool saying that I learned a few years ago. It's that the mind leads the body and the body leads the mind, right? If you were to take a pencil and put it in your mouth, will you make that face? Eventually, you're going to start feeling happy because your body's making the smiling face, right? They have shown in studies, I think it was Harvard, I'm not sure, we'll have to fact check it, but I'm pretty sure it was Harvard, that if you superhero pose,
oh yes, I've heard the superhero pose, right?
Then you will perform better.
Yes.
If you're in class, say, and this is dumb, right?
Right.
And you're curled up like this,
Mm-hmm.
your capacity to learn is diminished by up to 80%.
Yes, I believe that.
80%, and just because of your body language, because this is shutting your brain up. I don't agree with that.
Right. Yeah, right.
Right? And so even sometimes you're just cold. But it is you just be mindful, because if I'm like this, I'm closed off to you.
Yes.
And I'm closed off to what you have to say and the questions that you're asking. It would be just the same as having a conversation like this. Right? It doesn't work.
Right.
So just be a little mindful of that. But yeah, open up your chest and breathe. Yeah.
And look up.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we've gone over a lot. I know that we can kind of spread out and do some more talks on just this, and changing our thought patterns, changing our life. There's something there was a cascade. If you change your thoughts, then you change your habits, then you change there's something that you would say.
It's by changing your thoughts, you change your beliefs, which change your habits, which change your actions, which changes the results that you're getting. So it's that old phrase, what's the definition of insanity? Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results.
Right.
Right? I had a therapist one time tell me, so you're doing the same thing that you used to do? Well, yes. And is that working for you? Well, no, but that's what I'm trying to do, is trying to make this old habit work for me in a different way.
Right.
And she looked at me and she goes, well, if it hasn't worked, quit doing it.
Yeah, but we like our habits,
right?
don't
Yes,
we? We don't want to change
We do.
them.
But it starts, everything that happens around us, it starts with a thought. It's amazing how just one thought, one little spark, can turn into a wildfire.
Right. Yeah.
So it holds most prudent for us then to be in control of our thought. If you can control that one thought, and then you can think it again, and think it again, start believing it, then all of a sudden your actions change, and the results that you want also change.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm ready to go. Right? I'm ready to do my meditation and journaling. Well, thank you, Jens. I appreciate it. And you mentioned that you're doing this. You're coaching people. How do we get a hold of you?
You can go to jensdemaray.com. That's JENSDEMARAY.com. You can go to Facebook. That's Jens Demaray Consulting. I'm on Instagram, Jens Demaray Consulting. And get a hold of me. You can private message me there. Post on it. I'm here at the office. I'm working with you. You can also reach me through Demaray Chiropractic.
All right.
All right. And I'm thinking about we should do. I was this. We're shaking hands. No, I was thinking about that we should do. We can work on a guided meditation together, and maybe we. Just it doesn't have to be long. Like I said, meditation can be like 18 seconds. It can be box breathing. Or it can be 20 minutes, or we can be like Jared Leto and go out to the desert for 12 weeks and meditate. It can be anywhere in between. There's no way to do it wrong. But I think maybe you guys, if you're interested, we can do at least a little something.
Oh yeah, I think so. But I don't like the desert.
You don't have to go to the desert.
I'm just kidding. There was one thing I was gonna say. I lost it. Lost the train of thought.
Okay.
And that's it.
That's it.
Okay.
All right, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.